Welcome back to Archery 101, where this mini-series I show you guys what archery is, how it works, and how your team here at WCHS, the Arrow Jackets, what they do. If you haven't seen part 1 that talks about me, why I'm qualified to talk about this, the equipment, and other things, other aspects of archery, I highly recommend you go back and look at that one, because this video and this article will seem a little confusing. Now for this episode, we are talking about the 11 steps to archery success. Now you say, hey, Amaya, where did these come from? Well, I can tell you. This national organization called National Archery in the Schools, or NASP, has created these 11 steps to help archers that are brand new and are still learning to help figure out how archery works. And we'll be looking at what that looks like today. Those 11 steps are as follows: stance, knock, draw hand setup, bow hand setup, pre-draw, draw, anchor, aim, shot setup, release, and follow through. Now, us older archers don't know these because we were taught without them. That's why a lot of new archers know these. Like, for example, my younger brother, he does archery and he knows them. He can say them 1 to 11 pretty quickly, and I'm over here having to look off a document because I don't know them. But you don't have to know them to be an archer because, geez, I don't know them. I know a couple of them, but I don't know the ones in between because archery just feels like second nature to me now. Like, I can just boom, 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 and good to go. Now that you know the 11 steps, let's explain what they mean. Stance. Now, stance is the foundation of an archer, and that is extremely important because without a good stance, all of the other 10 steps are not going to mean anything at all. Now, the stance, there is a standard stance that most kids use. That also depends on if you're a right-handed or a left-handed bow user. On ranges, you'll have tape that goes all the way down the gym in 15 and 10 meters. So what you want to do with your stance is you want to straddle the line. Since I'm a right-handed, whatever foot faces the target is what you want to move. So you'll move it half back and slightly outwards. That opens up your body and your stance. For lefties, it's the same thing, except it's your right foot. So you want to go half back and out facing the target. Step 2 would be knock. Now, knock is a pretty simple concept. It's just knocking the arrow on the bow. But before you do that, you want to make sure that you check your arrows because you don't want an arrow with a weird fletching. You don't want an arrow with a broken knock or no knock at all. Or a tip. Yeah, the tips come out sometimes. It's very hard to do. But you want to make sure that you check your arrows before you knock them because you want that arrow to fly straight. And that's another thing. You want to make sure then check that your arrows are straight too, because if they aren't, your arrows are just going to go all over the place, and that's not what we want. Now that you have your stance ready, you can do knock. So when you knock an arrow, you normally have this little notch. So mine's green, but sometimes they're plastic. The plastic ones you don't want to use because they move pretty easily. So normally they'll take some kind of thread and they'll wrap it around and melt it on there so it doesn't move at all. And then you have this little piece. This is your arrow rest, and that's where the arrow rests when you knock it. See, I have this little clear piece, this plastic piece on that. I can't tell you how many I've broken this season, and I'm surprised this one has lasted as long as it has. But you don't have to shoot with it. There's a little metal rod that's inside of it that the arrow sits on, and it works just fine. So when you knock an arrow, you want to make sure that the different colored fletching is what faces towards you. It's very important because if you don't do that, then it will throw off your arrow a lot. So you want to make sure the knock and also the fletching and the tip are still there or in good shape. And also, like I said, make sure the arrow is fairly straight. So when you nock, you want to make sure that, again, this fletching is facing towards you, and you nock it right underneath, and it sets on that rest. Step 3 is draw a hand set. Now, most archers have 2 hands, so one of them holds the bow, the other one holds the string. Draw a hand is the one that holds the string. Step 3 is draw a hand. So that's my right hand. For lefties, it would be their left hand. So you want to use 3 fingers, and you want to make sure that when you put the string on them, that they go on the pads of your fingers. Now, you can't see it very well, but there's a line on my hands from where the string sets. And you don't want to do it too far down, because when you release, that's more time on your hand than it is in the air. And so all of that time that it's with your hand, it can throw off your shot, because if you move even ever so slightly, your arrow gets thrown way out of proportion and it goes crazy. So when you put it on the string, you want to make sure it's not right up against the nock, because if you released weirdly, then it can affect how the arrow flies. So for me, I put mine about right here, so you can see the gap in between my fingers. So like this. Number 4 is bow hand set. Obviously, you probably have another hand. So that one would be what's hold your bow. So you want to make sure that that hand is in place and set, and I will show you the other ways that you can set your bow hand, just like I did the draw hand. I'm gonna take my arrow off this one. Bow hand, which is my left hand, and the lefty's right hand. You want to make sure that you have your hand on there comfortably, but also aware of your arm. So how I originally started was I held my bow like this. Not a lot of people do that, which is okay, but for me, you can obviously see that this string touches my arm. That's not good. So then I started to do this, and it still touches my arm just a little bit. And it's also very straining on your arm and your hand and your shoulder. And then now what I do is, the proper way is you want to make sure this fatty part in your hand is resting right here on your bow, right there. So you want to make sure it's rested there. And then when you pull back, your fingers, you don't need your fingers. Like that, see? So now you don't need your fingers. Now that moves us on to the next step. Step 5 is pre-draw. Now, pre-draw is a little hard to explain, and it's easier to show you because I actually do this step and not a lot of archers do. They just go from bow hand, draw hand, straight into draw and anchor. But I do pre-draw because I have been working on my bow hand throughout the season, trying to get that under control so I'm not having bruises on my arms every single day from the string hitting me. So pre-draw helps you make sure that your hands are set and ready to go before you fully draw it and anchor and aim. So here's what that looks like. Our next step is what? Pre-draw. So pre-draw is what I just showed you in the last video, the last section. That was me pulling it back to show you. This is pre-draw. So it makes you feel, okay, this hand is set in the right place. This hand is set in the right place. I can now draw back. Now, number 6 is draw. Again, draw is kind of a little hard to explain just because it's easier just to see it. So draw is when you fully extend the bow all the way out. You pull all the way back to your face, right before you shoot. Next step is draw, which is going to be a little hard for me to talk and draw at the same time. So you pre-draw, and you draw all the way back, and you hold it. Number 7 is anchor. Now, to be honest, our archery team has a little bit of a problem with anchoring. Most kids don't do it, which that causes a lot of issues. Your consistency with your arrows are not there. They're just not there. And that's not what you want. You want a tight grouping of arrows somewhere so then you can move that around so you can get in the center. It's always been the concept. Well, some kids don't do that. So our coaches obviously will work with them to try and get them that. We've done multiple different exercises that sometimes scare me because we're so close to the targets and I am afraid that I'm going to break an arrow. Besides the point. So with anchor, like I said, it's very important because your groupings are going to be not there. And if they are there, they're going to be very inconsistent. And you want to be very consistent as an archer so you hit the same spot every time. So with anchor, I anchor different than most people, but here is how I anchor and how most people anchor. We have anchor. So you're drawn. This is gonna be hard for me to talk again. So you already drawn back. How most people anchor. So they take their 3 fingers and they hold it right here, the corner of the mouth. And I do it differently. I anchor like this. My middle finger hooks over so slightly inside my mouth, so I know when I anchor like that, it doesn't move. So I will show you how people. So this is how most people anchor right here. Is like this. How I anchor is like this. Now, some people anchor differently. Some people anchor back here. That's not good. You want to anchor in this general region. Some people just don't even anchor, and that's definitely not right. Again, a very important step, number 8, is aim. To be honest, another thing that most of our archers don't do is aim. Aiming is very important. It can put someone in harm if you don't aim and you're just drawing it willy-nilly and just firing willy-nilly, because it can hurt somebody. Now, hopefully you won't have a person on the range to worry about, but also your shots are going to be very inconsistent if you don't know where you aim. So we get these little cards, and I don't know where mine is, but you can get these little cards and it's of a target. And so my coaches will give us those, and then we'll take a pen or a pencil and we'll mark in where we aim so we don't forget those. I used to have a really bad habit of forgetting where I aimed. So when a tournament came around, I'd be like, I forgot where I aimed, Coach Billy, and he'd give me the side eye, like, how did you forget where you aim? So he started giving us these little paper targets so we can mark where they aim and keep them, and we can keep them on the line during a tournament, so I can just whip out my card and say, okay, this is where I'm aiming. I can do that. Now it's just ingrained in my brain because my aim hasn't changed the entire season, which is really nice because your aim will change. If you grow, if you get shorter, if you put more poundage on your bow, that will affect your aim point. Any little thing will affect your aim point. But it is good to know where it is for both 10 and 15 meters. There is also different ways that you can aim. So that can be, you can aim with the arrow tip, you can aim with the riser. For me, it gets a little confusing because I have to switch back and forth between the two, but it gets the job done, so it doesn't matter to me. You can aim with all different sorts on the bow, and as long as you have it consistently and it's easy for you, go for it. Aim. So for 10 meters, I aim with this little notch right here. For 15 meters, I aim with this. aiming works for everybody. When you start for the first time, when you aim, you want to aim with the arrow tip in the center of the target, because then you can take wherever that arrow went, just shoot 3 to 5 arrows in the center of the target, doing the same thing every single time. That way you can see where exactly your arrows went. Then you can move your aim point to fix that. So if this is the center of the target and the arrows go up here, then you want to move it down. It's a pretty simple concept. And a lot of archers don't understand that's what you do, and they get frustrated with that, and that's okay. It's just that you have to take wherever those arrows landed and move your aim point where you think where about the arrow should go. Number 9 is shot setup. Again, another one that's kind of hard to understand or to explain, because shot setup is all within you. You got your bow hand, your draw hand are ready to go, you're fully back, you're fully drawn, you've anchored, you're aiming right then and there. Shot setup is to take a reflection on how you feel right now. So when I shoot, I can feel when something's off. Right when I'm aiming, I can be like, oh, this hand doesn't feel correct, or my feet don't feel right. This is the time where you take the time to reflect on how you feel. Do you think that your feet do your feet feel like they're in the right spot? Do your hands feel like they're in the right spot? Is your anchor in the right spot? Are you aiming in the right spot? That's basically all shot setup is. Shot setup. So you have got your stance, your bow hand, draw hand, you've nocked it, you've anchored, you're aiming. Now, right before you release, as you're aiming, you want to think, okay, like I said before, is my feet right? Is my hands right? Is my anchor right? Am I aiming correctly before you do any kind of releasing? Because then, if you, like me, I can feel when something's off. I've been doing this for a while. I can feel when my stance isn't right, or my anchor's not right. New archers can't. They don't have that sensitivity because they're still learning. So you want to make sure, okay, think, my feet's right. This is right. This is right. This is right before you release. Now, the easiest one to explain is number 10, which is release. I think you all understand what that means, but I'll still explain. So release is when you let go. Now, there's different types of letting go. So depending on how your anchor looks, that's how you release. As you saw, my finger hooks in my mouth, so it gives me more stability when I anchor. And I can aim, and so it doesn't move as much as someone who just puts it right here and goes on with their day. So I have to flick my hand. I have to just gently release my hand so it unhooks from my mouth to then fire. Now, my releases aren't the best. I could definitely tell you that. But that's, again, something I've been working on throughout the season. And that's okay. If you know what you have struggled, if you know what you're struggling with, you can get help and they can help you. Or if you don't know what's going wrong, your coaches can help you, or even your peers can help you. I help kids all the time trying to figure out, is this right? Is this wrong? What you're doing. I watch my teammates. And I also helped with the kids at Huntertown and helped them learn. And I told them, hey, this is looking not okay. Let's fix that. So release is all in this hand, but also in this one, and in these, and in this. So when you release, it's very important that you stay still, because any little jerk of your hand or any like pull back or push forward, that can cause your arrow to go all sorts of ways that you didn't want it to go, or sometimes it can benefit you. I can say that I have had benefits from jerking upwards sometimes. But you really want to make sure that you stay still so you get the most accurate depiction of where that arrow went. So if it's too low, or if it's too high, if it's too left, or it's too right, you can fix that. Now that you have your shot set up and everything is good, you can now release. So I have my little handy dandy target. This is one that's pretty old. I don't really use it, but I definitely like dragging my good target out of our shed. So what am I gonna do? Stance. This hand, pre-draw. Ooh, that happens sometimes. Pre-draw, jaw, anchor, aim, release. And lastly, number 11, which is follow through. I can pride myself on my follow throughs because I have always been pretty good at this, even if I beat myself up over it, which is okay. Follow through. Follow through is after that you have done all of the other 10 steps. It's before you knock your next arrow, you look at yourself and you think, okay, where did that arrow go? Okay. And think about the rest of you. So, did I accidentally not aim in the right spot? Was my bow hand or my draw hand not right? Was my stance not the best? Did my arrow have something wrong with it? Did my bow have something wrong with it? What happened, and how can I either fix that or do that again? Follow through. So I really didn't follow through with that. But when you release, you hold it. You hold where you are for like a good 2 to 3 seconds. You hold it. Because if you don't, that arrow is still in motion. And if you move at all, that arrow will follow that. So if I release and I go like this, your arrow is just going to go boom. And that makes it inconsistent. Also, if you go like this and you go outwards, your arrow is going to go from this to it's going to come out here. It's going to go straight and curve. And you don't want that. That's also, yes, it's exciting to see your arrow hit your target, but you want to wait. Because if you release and automatically go to look at the target to see where your arrow hits, that's going to throw it off. It's going to make it curve. So when you release, you want to release, hold it, and then put your arms down. Now that you have shot, let's take a look at where I shot. Like I said, this is my crappy target. So the shot isn't accurate at all. So I shot right here. So obviously that's the center of the target-ish. So that's where I shot. Okay, so if I aimed about where I normally do, which is about right here, where this hole is, and it shot that means that I need to come down to about right here to bring that down. And then I take, okay, is there anything in my shot setup? Is there anything that I did differently than I would have? And that's basically all the 11 steps. Now, I'm a pretty slow shooter. You have 2 minutes to shoot all 5 of your arrows, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but as a slow shooter, it's really a lot. It all adds up over time. So I will show you what it looks like when I shoot. Now, I have a feeling that my target's gonna fall over. I shot one arrow, as you saw, and it fell over. So we're gonna see how this happens. So I got my stance, bow hand. Oh, wait, no, not again. I do mine differently than the steps, but I still do all of them. So I do my bow hand first, and then my draw hand. then pre-draw, draw, maybe? Again, that happens all the time. Draw, anchor, and release. And the target stayed up that time. Then, knock. I do this little flick thing. I don't know why. I'm also not used to shooting without a mask, so my shots were a little meh. Let's go take a look. Now, I went a little bit faster than I normally do for time's sake, but here is what we are looking like. Made a almost straight line down the target. I don't know what happened with that one, but see, this is where we started. I shot this one, and then that one, then this one, and that one. So I shot that one, and I said, okay, I need to move my aim point. So I shot those two, and I said, okay. Then I moved a little bit more, I got that one, and then I did something and goofed that one up. So that's what it looks like in real time, what an archer shoots, how they shoot. Now, all of you that want to start archery don't necessarily need to learn this. Like I said, I don't know these. I had to get another resource to tell me all the 11 steps because I didn't know them. We had posters that had the 11 steps on them. My coach didn't reference them. My coaches now don't. We're old enough now to know how it works, that we don't need to go through the list and be like, oh, your bow hand set wasn't. We just know. Now, I highly recommend it for younger generations and the elementary schoolers, even the middle schoolers, just anyone who's starting fresh, who's just now learning archery. Look at these. NASP does have videos on their website, which I will put in this article, of videos of people explaining the same steps as I did, maybe a little bit better. But they explain the steps, what that looks like, how you can better it, how you can fix it if something is going wrong, different things like that. So, thank you for watching part 2. I hope you really enjoyed this. We are almost done with Archery 101. Next is our last and final part, which is tournaments. I know you guys have probably been wondering what tournaments look like. You may not hear about them as often, but they're very important to us, especially if they're state qualifiers, which I will explain what that means in the next video. Thank you guys so much for this one, and I can't wait to see you in the next part. See ya!